各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，第4届联合国世界数据论坛中国全会即将开始，请大家尽快落座，请不要随意走动，保持会场安静，谢谢。
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stefan Schweinfest. I'm the director of the UN Statistics Division, and I'm very happy that I came here from New York, like many of you came from far away, to be together for this World Data Forum. Allow me to make just a few introductory and welcoming remarks. So yesterday we had the big opening, and it was quite impressive. Thank you and congratulations again to our hosts from China. But now we are sort of amongst ourselves, the data people, or as I sometimes say, the people who care about data. And now we'll start with the real business. And before we do so, let me just reflect on the 3 words that are on everywhere: World Data Forum. Let's start with the word world. I mean, you've all come from different places, and I know some of you have invested. It was quite challenging and expensive to come here, so thank you for that, for coming together. And it's also quite natural that you may want to get something out of this investment. So we have, with the virtual connection, 140 different countries connected. We have different communities. We speak different languages, and I'm not only talking about English, French, or Chinese or so. We speak also different professional languages, so we have to get used to each other and talk to each other in these next couple of days. We know, we have been told, data is important. And now we also, the users and the politicians yesterday gave us this assurance. And sometimes, quite honestly, we are craving for attention. So we got that attention. But now the challenge is on us, the data community or the data communities. We need to get our act together. And because we want, at the end, not only attention, to be quite frank, we are asking for investments. We want money. And the ones who have the resources, the politicians, the private sector, some of the philanthropies, and even the civil society, they will only give us the money, the data community, if we, as I just said, have our act together. So I think that is one of the challenges that we want to live here in the next couple of days. Data, let me reflect on that word. I think we are at a historical moment. There is more data in the world than ever before. It has become easy to produce data, it's easy to use data, it's easy to transport data from one place to another. But we have a fundamental challenge that we are all caring about here, and that is the one that I call data traffic. How do we get the right data to the right place? And the right place is a place of use, a place of responsible use of data. And sometimes one of my biggest frustrations when I've been traveling around the world is that there is a lot of information, but it's not being used. It's not in the right hands. It's not in the right place. So I think that is really a challenge that we here, where different countries, different data communities are coming together, we need to talk about this. And data do not only have to flow from their place of production or place of birth, as I sometimes call, to the place of use. They have to go through a gate of quality control. It is very important that we do not only know what the information is, but also how good it is, where it's coming from. So we have a lot of topics on the agenda here: data ownership, data governance, data stewardship, data quality, data culture, as I sometimes call it. And so I'm really super excited. All of you will be part of these discussions, and this is what we're really here for. Now, my last reflection is on the word forum. I remember when we created this event, or the series of events, we were called, how are we going to call it? A congress, a gathering, a conference, a forum. And I quite liked the word forum because as a kid, I always was dreaming that one day I could go to the original Forum Romanum, where I imagine all the old Romans coming together and mingling and talking to each other about all kinds of topics. So this is why we call this a forum. You are all like the old Romans coming together in a nice place to talk to each other. We have the official program, of course, but I always say the tea breaks or coffee breaks are much more important. So please mingle, meet, build trust with each other, and go even beyond that. I mean, identify projects and get engaged, even outside the official program, because this is the beginning of a journey. This continues. We have the forum here, but we already know the next forum is going to be in Colombia in a year and a half from now. So the outcome here officially is a declaration, but I mean, for me, the real outcome is you being excited about the topics that we are discussing about, you having meetings with friends, you making new friends, you taking home telephone numbers and following up. So I encourage you that this will be the beginning of a journey for you, for all of us, to continue working on all of these important topics. So we have come a very long way since the beginning in Cape Town, but we also still have a long way to go. So we have, I think, an exciting program, a lot of interactions. We have tried to put in different things like innovative labs, TED-style talks, the official program, and the famous coffee and tea breaks. Don't forget that. All I can say, thank you for coming and enjoy the World Data Forum. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, after Mr. Stefan's introduction, now let's start the host country plenary, the first plenary of this forum. We have ladies and gentlemen sitting on the podium. They are the keynote speakers and commentators, of course not including me. Please allow me to introduce to you some of the distinguished guests. Under Secretary General Li Junhua, UNSD Deputy Director Ronald, and also two lady Deputy Director, both of them called Francisca, and Paul Chong, the former Director General of UNSD, UNSD Program Officer Ma Ming, Zhejiang Provincial Vice Provincial Governor Zhang Yuanyun, Chen Ji, Vice Mayor of Hangzhou, and also Xie Fuzhan, the former Commissioner of NBS, and the former Commissioner Ning Juzhe, Deputy Commissioner of NBS Lin Rutao, the former Deputy Commissioner Xian Zhude, Li Xiaochao, and also we have professors from Peking University, Chen Songxi, as well as experts and scholars from other universities and colleges. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming to the host session.
The theme of this host country plenary session is data for decision, for governance, and for innovation, new opportunities and challenges. With the development of new generation of information technology, the important value of data is becoming more prominent, and data has gradually become a basic and strategic resource for countries. across the world and has become an important driving force for global sustainable development. The realization of sustainable development goals and the implementation of the Global Development Initiative present demands for data and statistics innovation. This session will focus on the important role of data in implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Global Development Initiative. And we will conduct in-depth discussions on the opportunities and the challenges of data in supporting decision-making, improving governance, and promoting innovation. Now, let's invite Mr. Kang Yi, Commissioner of the NBS China, to deliver a keynote speech. Welcome. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good morning. According to the program of the 4th United Nations World Data Forum, the NBS China has chosen this theme for the host country plenary session, which is challenges and opportunities. Data for decision, data for governance, and for innovation. We will mainly look at the important role of data in our society, and we want to expand our cooperation in data and statistics. First of all, on behalf of the NBS China, I would like to extend our sincere welcome to all of the guests. And my heartfelt thanks go to all of the friends for your support for China. At the opening ceremony, President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory letter, and the Vice Premier of China, Mr. Ding Xuexiang, delivered some opening remarks, and they explained and clarified China's commitment to strengthening and data governance and data innovation. And they expressed our clear attitude towards sustainable development of the world. Currently, the digital wave is sweeping the world. Data as a basic strategic resource, an important productive force, and a key factor of production is generating multiplier effects on other factors of production due to its typical features of non-scarcity, non-competitiveness, and increasing returns to scale. Data has profoundly changed the global economic operating mechanism and social production modes and lifestyles, created new space and momentum to improve national governance capability and to advance sustainable development across the world. The use of data for decision-making, data governance, and data innovation is becoming the general consensus and a positive action of all countries. The demand of the international community for strengthening data innovation, typing data value, deepening data cooperation, and improving data governance is becoming increasingly urgent. In a multi-tiered system with data as a factor of production, official statistics are statutory and are important public resources with uniquely strategic, comprehensive, and fundamental values. In the process of accelerated digital transformation of the economy and society, government statistical agencies in various countries have witnessed that the environment to produce, manage, and use data is changing profoundly, and they are facing unprecedented opportunities and challenges. In terms of opportunities, the exponential growth of data scale and the increasing richness of data types will provide rich data sources for government statistical agencies. The iterative upgrading of network technology, the emergence of new algorithms, and the rapid change of arithmetic construction make it highly possible to change the way official statistics are produced. The diversification of data producers, the expansion expansion of data application scenarios and the closer association of data will provide a powerful means to cross-check the quality of statistical data. The value of data continues to be highlighted. The demand for data is more vigorous and the attention to data is increasing, which will provide a good environment for optimizing the data ecosystem. In terms of challenges, the scope of data has been expanded enormously. A large quantity of non-traditional data has been produced and widely used in daily life and productions, as well as national governance. The granularity of data is reaching higher level, and the traditional means for government statistical agencies to collect, store, and process data is difficult to handle such large amount and diversified data. Adjustments must be made in areas like the official statistical system, organization and management methods, as well as standards and rules of data collection principles, samples and subjects, and techniques to better meet the needs of scientific decision-making and micro-governance. The statistical concept is moving from competition to coexistence, statistical standards from static to dynamic, data processing from traditional to modern, and statistical products from single to diversified. It is the common mission for all statisticians who are engaged in official statistics to rise to the challenges and solve these problems. At present, high-quality development is the top priority for China in building itself into a modernized socialist country in all aspects, and is also the essential requirement for realizing Chinese modernization. It is an important duty of the Chinese government's statistical agencies to monitor and reflect the progress of China's high-quality development in a scientific, accurate, objective, and timely manner. Over recent years, the NBS China has carried out a series of positive explorations and innovative practices in response to the trend of digitalization and the requirements of implementing the new development philosophy, building new development paradigm, and advancing high-quality development. We deeply promote the reform of statistical modernization and be a counselor to support database decision-making. We have studied and established a Chinese-style modernized statistical monitoring system, established a sound statistical system for high-quality development, studied and developed a statistical classification and monitoring system related to the digital economy, improved the statistical monitoring system for new industries, new forms and new models of business, improved the statistics on strategic emerging industries, improved and perfected statistics on the service retail consumption market, strengthened statistics on technological innovation, implemented statistics on investment in intellectual property products, solidly promoted statistics and accounting on carbon emissions, deepened the study of data asset accounting. These efforts aim to present a full and objective picture of China's economic and social development and digital transformation in a timely manner. We continue to optimize statistical monitoring and analysis to be the service provider for data governance. Focusing on the demands for national macro-governance, we have conducted national consensus on population, agriculture, economy, and poverty alleviation, focusing on hot and difficult issues of economic and social development and the needs and expectations of the public. We continue to strengthen our economic operation monitoring and analysis, carry out in-depth statistical analysis of employment, prices, and household income, strengthen monitoring of production operation in food and energy, actively carry out statistical monitoring on rural revitalization, and prepare for statistical monitoring on common prosperity. These efforts are providing extensive and solid data to advance the modernization of national governance system and governance capacity. We accelerate the digital transformation of statistics and be a pioneer in strengthening data innovation. We have deepened and expanded the application of big data in statistical areas such as agriculture, trade, economy, population, and prices. We use remote sensing information to carry out surveys on major grain yields and integrated online transaction data into our regular statistical survey programs to reflect new trends of consumption and utilized administrative administrative records and cellular signaling data to strengthen monitoring on newborns and population migration. In the meantime, with the Statistical Cloud project as the basis, we have advanced the adoption of online direct reporting system in all statistical areas, promoted data collection with equipment like PDAs, studied and built the new structure of smart statistics, and actively explored the application of IoT, AI, and other technologies. In the 4th National Economic Consensus and the 7th National Population Census, we have promoted electronic data collection in depth. We have actively carried out statistical exchanges with other countries, and we are the advocate of data cooperation. We have continuously strengthened bilateral and multilateral exchanges on statistics and signed Memorandum of Understanding on cooperation with many national official statistical agencies. We hosted and participated in series events such as the China-ASEAN Statistics Forum and meetings of the heads of statistical offices of BRICS countries. We have actively engaged in international statistical affairs, built the UN Global Platform for Big Data, China Hub, to a high standard, consolidated the results of China UN Trust Fund project for statistical capacity development, and continued to play our role as a member of the UN High-Level Group for Partnership Coordination and Capacity Building for Statistics for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, organized and carried out research on Beyond GDP, improved and strengthened statistical monitoring, and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We have actively made China's voice heard and proposed China's solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, data is a common resource for human beings, and statistics is a common language in the world. China will further improve the official statistical system, strengthen the integration, gathering, sharing, opening up joint development and use of data resources, strengthen the cooperation and sharing in the process of monitoring the SDGs of 2030 Agenda, and continuously promote the common development of global statistics. The NPS China is willing to work with all parties to seize the opportunities and rise up to the challenges, to contribute to the global data and the statistical capacity building, and to create a better future in the digital era of mankind. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Commissioner Kang Yi, for the wonderful presentation. Commissioner Kang Yi deeply analyzes the new opportunities and the challenges faced by government statistics and introduces a series of explorations and innovative practices carried out by the NBS China around implementing the new development concept, building a new development pattern, and promoting high-quality development from 4 aspects, and calls for joint efforts to meet opportunities and face challenges together. And he shared with us how we should conduct innovative statistics development. Now I'm going to invite the commentator, Mr. Stefan Schweinfest, the Director General of the UNSD, to provide comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kang, for your presentation. And I know you have just been appointed Commissioner of the Statistical System of China. And boy, China is a big country, and there are a lot of data here. So talking about big data, you certainly have a big job to do. And I'm not sure whether I envy you to do this job. The challenges you face is the challenges that we all face. We are all in the same boat. Huge demand, huge challenges from the government side, but many other stakeholders' side. And at the same time, we need to maintain data ethics and follow the fundamental principles of official statistics as adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. So how do we do all of that? Well, you mentioned 2 important words, innovation and partnership. And those are exactly also the topics of our World Data Forum. You have given us a couple of examples of how you work with everybody here using the opportunities that the digital transformation offers us. And when I look around the room, I see a lot of young people with their telephones in their hand. That exactly is the digital transformation. We are producing and using data at any moment of time nowadays. You have given us some examples of how you are modernizing the Chinese statistical system in terms of new data collections, methods, and new partnerships, also with the private sector. And for instance, the use of satellite imagery. I have also been impressed what the colleagues on the geospatial information side are doing. We just had the meeting with our friends from the Ministry of Natural Resources and our UN center here in Zhejiang province. And we know that Zhejiang province is leading in many aspects of using information technology for our lives. And I wanted to thank you for your engagement at the global level, because I believe that is one partnership with everybody else on the planet that is also important. China has been exemplary in its quest to follow global statistical standards in an increasingly global and digital economy. I remember many discussions about the implementation of the system of national accounts, which is the system, this is the language with which we speak across the globe. You have been engaged in the high-level group, as you mentioned, which has been the basis for organizing this World Data Forum, and I'm very grateful for that. You've also been engaged with a trust fund that has given us the opportunity to help many developing countries over the last 13 years, I believe now, to share some of your experiences here. But I'm deeply convinced that we can learn from each other. The world can learn from China, and China can learn from the rest of the world through this international engagement. And I'm very grateful that you have mentioned and stressed this so strongly in your statement. And I'm looking forward to taking it even to a new level in our cooperation on big data. And your contribution to the UN Global Platform is definitely gratefully acknowledged. And as I said, we will also, whilst we are here, explore how we can intensify our cooperation in this area, and I'm deeply convinced it will be for the benefit of everybody in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stefan Schweinfest, for your excellent commentary remarks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, we chose Hangzhou to be the venue of the 4th United Nations World Data Forum. There are clear rationale behind that, because over the past few years, Zhejiang is developing very fast digitalization. So digitalization has been empowering a lot of high-tech companies to grow very fast by leaps and bounds. Digital transformation of the government has achieved a lot of achievements. Without further ado, let's welcome the Director General of Zhejiang Provincial Bureau of Statistics, Wu Shengfeng, to walk us through digital transformation of the government Zhejiang experience, practices, and experiences. Welcome, Wu Shengfeng. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hello everyone. Welcome on board and to this digital city of Hangzhou. It's my pleasure to meet you at the global statistical event that brings together data producers and users. On behalf of the Zhejiang provincial government, I would like to shed some light on the digital transformation of the government. Digital transformation is the key for Zhejiang province to comprehensively deepen the reform in the new era, and represents a new phase of digital Zhejiang blueprint mapped out by General Secretary Xi Jinping during his work tenure in Zhejiang province. Digital government is one of the 6 major systems of digital reform in Zhejiang province. We are always putting people first. We give full play to driving the role of the data markets and innovation, and strive to jointly build a new digital civilization ecosystem based on collaboration, participation, and a common interest between the government services and the regulation, industry self-discipline, as well as the enterprise and primary level autonomy as well, so that together we can build a well-functioning government. and develop effective market and maintain the social order, and ensure sound governance and raise people's satisfaction. We push forward reforming organizational structure, management framework, and service structure in the endeavor to build a province that excels in public services, business environment, and market mechanism, and regulatory quality and efficiency to create a modern government that features digital governance and to work down to the earth to remain in the vanguard. We are building an integrated and shared intelligent public data platform through collaboration. So we are focusing on the target of digital transformation. We spare no efforts in establishing a very centralized, effective, and also self-regulated and safe and compatible and open integrated public data platform through collaboration. As part of the efforts, we continuously develop digital infrastructure, data resources, applications, and business application scenarios, and policies and norms and standards and institutional framework, and also the governance system and network, etc. 治理办、执政丁, these are the two important apps for us. So we are comprehensively servicing the social organization and the party groups as well as public enterprises and the social enterprises to do the reforms. So effectively, we are supporting a comprehensive reform to use data as the empowerment tool to inform decision-making and monitoring, regulation, service, and everything through the government public service delivery cycle. We are strengthening the digital infrastructure. As part of the efforts, we are trying to make sure that we want to establish the regional cluster of the data center as well as the super computing center for the national level, so that we are going to establish an open source AI-powered computing mechanism for China, so that we want to develop the all China influential artificial intelligence powered mechanism. So we are going to establish a collaborative office by using the PDA, 执政丁, and other different applications to make sure that every officials are integrated into the same platform, so that we can work collaboratively across each other, so that we can enhance the work efficiency. We strengthen the establishment of the data governance mechanism. As part of the effort, we are going to run the pilot program for national level, the digital transformation, so that we are having a classified data protection mechanism and trying to improve the safe protection of the key data critical infrastructure. Secondly, so we are trying to develop the landmark projects of digital government. As part of the efforts, based on the key demands, we are putting some continuous efforts to make sure that digital government has become a landmark for Zhejiang province. As a result of that, so we are going to get things done. So whatever we do, we are going to make it successful. It's a snowballing for a lot of different one-year projects, and 2 years efforts will become strategically successful. So that based on strategic arrangement, we are going to roll out a lot of major applications of strategic importance. So the statistical monitoring system for common prosperity, scientifically advised the evaluation and regulation and monitoring is going to be advised to achieve the strategic target. We are going to establish a demonstration project to provide the data guarantee for the project. We're staying focused on achieving the requirement of people's requirement, so that for a lot of major applications, addressing people's concerns can be done. So, for example, we developed a lot of applications, expedited process handling, mini program application for the general public. At the same time, we are establishing 省新办、快速办、无改办. Those are the names of the apps which is going to expedite the procedure handling process for the people, so that it can feel well-being and happy. So we are going to focus on globalization to make sure that we are going to roll out a lot of high-quality, empowering application, 浙江在线, commerce online, to make sure that we streamline the procedure for the handling of the procedures for the businesses, so that we can address the issue of previously inaccessibility and untargeted development and services for the enterprises throughout their circle. So we want to cultivate high-quality enterprises. We are going to alleviate the major risks. So we rolled out a lot of major applications, which is about centralized risk protection. So for example, we are going to have the flood prevention mechanism online, so that we centralize the process, redesign the process, and redesign the institutional arrangement, so that to share the data, we're going to have the digital platform to try to reconstruct our institutional arrangement, so that we can have efficient natural disaster prevention mechanism, which is powered by a very strong, effective command and control, so that we can keep our regulation in a very high efficient way. For example, as part of efforts, Internet Plus regulation, and also rule by law and law enforcement all will be brought online. So think about the monitoring procedure for law enforcement is a self-closed loop. With that, we enhance the efficiency of the monitoring of the law enforcement efforts. So as part of the efforts, we are going to focus on the effective functioning of the government. As a result of that, we rolled out a lot of innovative applications. So the digital platform for the spatial governance, and also we are having the later map and data and the bottom line system. So we are trying to integrate the system flow to make sure that we want to match up with the accurate spatial factors. We are having the evaluation mechanism for the utilization of the spatial spaces. And thirdly, we're going to run the pilot programs for the statistical monitoring reform. So we are going to respond to the overall target of a reform, production, service, and monitoring of the statistical work we've done as well. We utilize artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, and other emerging new technologies to establish a data-driven and computer-oriented, reasoning-driven kind of knowledge sharing mechanism, which is intelligent, which is AI-powered. So as a result of that, we are going to develop a featured statistical mechanism to make sure that responding to major requirements across multiple user scenarios, we're going to find the entry point for reform. So as a result of that, we are going to have the 13 different items on the agenda for the major reforms. We are rolling out 10 critical applications going to be powered by digital transformation to have a comprehensive reform in statistical system. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, so now the world is into the digital transformation period, of which data has become the new productive factor. I believe that with the data-driven decision-making and also data-driven innovation is going to develop by leaps and bounds. So we're going to achieve the 2030 SDG agenda. So data is going to play a more important role in the global development. We're going to stay committed towards digital Zhejiang, deepening the innovation to have a high-level, high-quality, innovative province, so that we are going to develop the project number 1, which is to use the digital economy to transform and enhance the quality and efficiency, so that we're going to make new progress based on digitalization. So Digital China's pilot zone will be in Zhejiang, so that we're going to become the high ground for digital revolution. In the process of promoting digital transformation, we're going to contribute experiences from Zhejiang province. Last but not least, I hope this conference can be a great success. I really hope that you can enjoy your best day, the best of luck and work and everything to you in Zhejiang. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Wu Shengfeng. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever are interested in knowing more insights and information, I suggest you to drop by a visit for the exhibition area so you can see the best experiences from Zhejiang and Hangzhou. There are some cases for the statistical application from China as well. There are some of great experiences sharing from the Chinese companies specializing in big data. And also there are some introduction of the United Nations and other international organizations as well. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Sadat Chatji, a U.S. resident coordinator in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wu, for sharing the experience of Zhejiang province in terms of digital governance and digital transformation. In fact, Zhejiang province is a microcosm of China's success of the last 4 decades, where it has been able to converge big data, technology, and innovation. But big data, technology, and innovation on its own does not make the difference. It has to be backed up by strong political will, the right public policies, and the right partnerships. So on all counts, I wish to congratulate this incredible province for what it has managed to achieve. The digitalization of data and statistics is creating enormous potential to help us to respond to a myriad of development and humanitarian challenges. And Zhejiang province can serve as a shining star of how cities, provinces, and countries can benefit from this process. As the mathematician Clive Humby said in 2006, and I quote, "Data is the new oil, end of quote. And the amount of data produced daily is growing at an astounding rate, with estimates indicating that 90% of the world's data was generated in the last 2 years. The rapid rise of data production creates enormous potential for being able to more rapidly, more effectively, and more efficiently respond to the challenges we face, from identifying victims of natural disasters to real-time using social media and other types of data, to allowing access to real-time pricing of agricultural goods, to food production. Data is a key driver in our shared goal of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, digital transformation is not a silver bullet. Around 2.7 billion people across the world or 1/3 of the world's population remain unconnected to the internet in 2022, and the risk of being left behind as we digitize many aspects of our lives. This principally affects the most vulnerable, who we must remember, and in ensuring that we committed to ensuring that they benefit from the progress made in the 2030 Agenda. We must also ensure that there exists a common internationally agreed data governance architecture to ensure that the increasing amounts of data collected is treated in a way that protects the internationally agreed rights of the individual and is used for a global common good. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to commend the Commissioner Kang Yi of MBS, as well as Undersecretary General Li Junhua, for their leadership in bringing together this incredible forum with the start of 2023. I'm really thrilled to see the turnout at the 2023 World Data Forum, as it indicates the immense global interest in finding solutions, innovative ways to promote data for sustainable development. The example of Zhejiang province can serve to motivate others to follow on a similar path. And as the United Nations Resident Coordinator here in China, I am committed to promoting international cooperation opportunities that other countries can benefit from these experiences. The United Nations Secretary General said in his speech yesterday, and I quote, "This conference is an opportunity to turbocharge the transformative potential of data for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals." End of quote. Thank you very much. Xie xie.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful comment. Next, I would like to invite a private sector representative to brief us about their experience. They were born in Guangdong, Shenzhen, the frontier of China's reform and the opening up policy. We would like to give the floor to Liu Tanlin of SF to brief us about their success. Vice President of SF Technology, the floor is yours. Distinguished leaders, organizers, hosts, country representatives, the experts. My name is Liu Tanren, Vice President, SF Technology. I'm very honored to represent SF, to attend this host plenary session. I'm going to talk about using big data to help transform company transformation. So we would like to share with you our observations. Globally speaking, logistics and the supply chain are driven by technology every day around the corners of the street, and also you can see throughout the world. You can see the couriers of SF. We have a gigantic network to provide steady and fast services, which cannot be done with the contribution of data. Let's look at the logistics delivery. Actually, you can see throughout the whole process, no matter for orderings and couriers management, we have used the gigantic amount of data to make sure each parcel can be delivered from the businesses to consumers. The data enables us to think, how can we make sure the frontier curious to have a sense of happiness, to enable the real economy to have better development? How can we have a one-stop shop service? Before the ordering, we have started to leverage data to do the thinking process. And based on the market conditions, history information to forecast the business scenario. For example, Hangzhou next week, tomorrow, and also next batch of delivery. And based on the forecast, we will prepare relevant resources. And also to arrange couriers, trucks, and the distribution to actually make sure the business can go on smoothly. After the order is officially placed, based on the timeliness requirement and service requirement, we would consider the comprehensive information about resource allocation to determine which train, which airplane, which courier should be arranged. In this process, we might face bad weather or shortage of resources. Based on the actual conditions, we will dynamically forecast whether this parcel, what is the expected time of delivery. If there might be some emergencies, we would adjust to make sure the parcels can be delivered on time. This is about the logic of arranging one parcel. Behind that, SF, based on the big data, we have the smart planning. We have actually the big data to guarantee that especially temporarily, we can have reasonable resource allocation. And also, we want to balance the timeliness and the cost-benefit analysis. And good user experience is one of our competitiveness. Happy employees can better serve the customers with smiles. As a leading company, SF pay greater attention to the experience of frontline workers like couriers. In the past, actually, we would have the outlet managers to arrange their schedule according to their experiences. You know, it is really subjective. We have 1,000 managers might have different schedule management strategies. It is difficult to optimize the schedule. In order to better optimize the whole process, our information system would consider their preferred working time, their capabilities, as well as different areas situation to dynamically dispatch the courier working time and space. In addition, we also provide couriers with very fair treatment. Actually, the system platform consider the difficulties of dispatching the parcels, whether there is an elevator distance, whether it is dispatched during nighttime, we would arrange subsidies for them. In addition to the fast delivery, we also make sure throughout the supply chain, we can leverage the advantages of data. We have actually accumulated hundreds of cases and covering different market segments, different industry sectors. These industry sectors use the data to make sure the supply chain visible, resilient, controllable. For example, we serve several cosmetics industrial sectors. They have a very large consumption amount. And in terms of supply chain management, they face a lot of difficulties. For example, in the peak seasons and off-peak seasons, how can they forecast the consumption and merchandise and replenish the inventory, so on and so forth. Based on the different problems, we actually try to link the scattered data, integrate the data sources to have a precise management of the whole process, optimize the forecast to make sure the whole supply chain is visible. Now, for the cosmetics industrial sectors, they can coordinate the warehousing network to have a controllable, visible supply chain. Of course, this is part of the cases for data-driven management. Many scenarios rely on data plus the front-end situation. And also, based on the digital technologies, we combine it with the real situation to do the simulation to minimize the cost, to optimize the real-world strategy. And for example, in virtual environment, after tens of thousands of optimization and also picking up scenarios, we actually try to improve the efficiency of distribution.
and transportation. We also have set up our own carbon emission management system. We can real-time monitoring the system of emissions. Through this way, we can optimize the packaging and the whole process to contribute to sustainable development, to reduce carbon emissions. Facing the digital future, we believe that technology transforms logistics, logistics transforms lives. Under the digitalization, we still have a big potential to further tap. We want to work with more partners to do the joint exploration to maximize the value of data, to have a synergetic cooperation, to use data to create a better society. Finally, wish this forum a complete success. All the best with you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Liu, for the wonderful sharing. He talked about logistics company. We would think about the couriers, the delivery guys. It is a labor-intensive industry, but we increasingly notice that not only delivery industry satisfy our needs and help us to fight against the pandemic, and also to satisfy the beautiful aspirations of people. Delivery industry also use technology and big data to help their development. So we show our respect for the logistics industry. Next, we would like to give the floor to Mr. Khalaf, Secretary General of the High Commission for Planning of Morocco, to give us the comment.
Thank you. I would like, first of all, to thank Invest with China for inviting me to this very important UN World Forum data, and also for the cooperation that our Department of Statistics in Morocco is building with the NBS of China. To comment on Mr. Liu's intervention of technology, and from what we just have been seeing, we can see that the process of transformation at the organizational level involves a reorganization of existing processes, procedures, structures, and services. It entails redesigning organizational aspects such as structures, operations, and the organization's culture. Digital transformation affects both the technical and social systems, including cultural and organizational aspects. Indeed, digital transformation has the potential to completely overhaul how institutions, including government and businesses, operate. For someone like me who is coming from a National Statistics Office of Morocco, we feel the increasing pressure to adapt our digital capabilities to meet the growing expectations of data users. This is especially challenging for national statistics offices, especially in low and middle-income countries who may have limited experience with digitalization and struggle to keep up with rapid technological changes. Digital transformation is a critical process for NSOs in adapting to the changing needs of data users and maintaining relevance in the rapidly evolving technological landscape. However, NSOs in low and middle-income countries face unique challenges in their digital transformations, including limited exposure to digitalization, resource constraints, and competing priorities. Exploration and practices on digital transformation in the context of NSOs involves identifying specific strategies and techniques that can help NSOs leverage technology to drive innovation and growth. This may include investing in cloud computing, data analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning, cybersecurity, agile methodologies, digital marketing, and Internet of Things. Additionally, successful digital transformation in the context of NSOs requires comprehensive institutional changes in areas such as governance, procurement, and human resources. This may involve building a culture of innovation and experimentation, developing policies and processes that support digital transformation, and ensuring that NSOs have the necessary resources and expertise to implement digital initiatives effectively. Overall, exploration and practices on digital transformation in the context of NSOs must take into account the unique challenges and opportunities facing NSOs in low and middle income countries. By adopting a strategic and comprehensive approach to digital transformation, NSOs can leverage technology to drive innovation, improve operational efficiency, and enhance the quality and relevance of the data they produce. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yash Khalaf, for your comments. As we know, by the end of 2020, China completed the goal and task of poverty alleviation as scheduled and laid down a solid foundation for China to build a well-off society. And this is a miracle in the history of human poverty reduction. At the same time, the NBS China has conducted a census on poverty alleviation, and in that process, we have kept effective partnership with the World Bank. And now we have Ms. Fu Haishan, Director of the Development Data Group of the World Bank. He's going to talk about poverty monitoring and poverty alleviation in China, implications for the developing countries. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
The role of cutting-edge digital technology for business and economic development. Let's turn to extreme poverty eradication. For those of us at the World Bank, we're reminded every day when we walk into our lobby and see the world emblazoned on the wall. Our world, our dream is a world free of poverty. Indeed, reducing extreme poverty is at the very heart of what we do in development. As you would remember, when the world came together to create the Millennium Development Goals, our collective mission of reducing poverty was front and center. And again, for the Sustainable Development Goals, the very first goal is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. And yet, as of 2019, right at the eve of the COVID pandemic, according to our estimate, 659 million people around the world still living in extreme poverty, according to the International Poverty Line, $1.90 per day in PPP terms. Now, while there is still a long way to go to get to a poverty-free world, the world has made remarkable progress in fighting extreme poverty in the past 3 decades. In 1990, 38% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, nearly 2 billion people. By 2014, the number had fallen to 11%, or 800 million. During those 24 years, poverty decreased on average by more than a full percentage point per year. But starting in 2015, we started to see a slowdown in poverty reduction. The rate fell to just half a percentage point a year in terms of reduction, in tandem with subdued global economic progress. But all in all, between 1990 and 2019, the number of people living in extreme poverty was reduced by about 66%. So we know in those 3 decades, the face of poverty changed drastically. In 1990, most of the world's extreme poor lived in Asia. Today, most of the extreme poor lived in sub-Saharan Africa. This geographic transformation of the map of poverty was led by the incredible progress made in reducing extreme poverty in China. In 1990, an estimated 756 million people lived in extreme poverty in China. Compare this to 2019, when that number shrank to just 2 million people, a massive decline. Indeed, over the last 40 years, China has lifted over 800 million people out of extreme poverty. China alone accounts for almost 3/4 of the total reduction in global extreme poverty since 1980. How did China achieved this incredible decline, decades of sustained high economic growth, fueled by a massive shift to workers from low productivity agricultural to high productivity industries, and more recently to services. The World Bank is proud to have been able to support China's remarkable economic development, starting with the first project loan in 1981. Since then, the China-World Bank partnership has been one of the most successful engagement of the World Bank Group, according to our former president, Robert Zoellick. And we have worked together on everything from policies for good economic management to targeted interventions for poverty reduction through integrated rural development projects. These experiences of China's poverty reduction were documented and explained in a recent joint study by the World Bank and China's Development Research Center, which helped the rest of the world to learn from the China experience. The joint study also includes reflections on what the next stage of poverty reduction in China requires in terms of setting new targets and policy focus. So going forward, it's actually critical to ensure that the progress continues in an inclusive and sustainable manner, especially considering that in 2019, a quarter of the Chinese population was still living below the higher $6.85 per day poverty line, typical of upper middle income economies like China. So we at the World Bank are looking forward to working with the Chinese government to continue to support progress in reducing poverty in its different forms. Now, turning back to the global picture again. After decades of declining extreme poverty rates, the COVID pandemic hit us all. And the goal to end extreme poverty globally suffered its worst setback since global poverty monitoring began. 2020 brought about the largest increase in global poverty since 1990, when the World Bank first started reporting our global poverty estimates. And according to those estimates, more than 70 billion people were pushed into extreme poverty in 2020. Here, I should recognize our host country again. As you may know, the global poverty numbers I'm citing are heavily influenced by the most populous countries like India and China, as each person in the world is weighted equally. But despite its size, China is home to just a small share of the global extreme poverty and had only moderate economic shocks in 2020. So as a result, China did not actually contribute to the global increase in extreme poverty in 2020 significantly. Nonetheless, the COVID pandemic and its resulting impact were devastating to the cause of poverty reduction. And at this point, it's become clear that the goal of reducing extreme poverty to 3% of the world's population by 2030 is not reachable. So this is really a crisis point for those of us who work in development. Why are we so off track in efforts to eradicate extreme poverty? And why have we failed to better the lives of the most vulnerable among us? I mean, those living in extreme poverty. Part of the answer is data. Data produced by the public sector can transform development. Through better targeting of resources, improved service delivery, cost savings in policy implementation, and increased accountability, and more. And globally, while the public sector is producing more and more data, much of the potential value of data has still not yet been fully realized. The question is, what must be done to change that? The world is changing rapidly. And with that change, we need better policies and more agile responses to crisis and more nuanced understanding of today's complex problems. This means that we must try to rethink the way we collect, produce, and use data. We need to understand that data can be used and reused again and again to help us discover new solutions to the pressing problems of the day. When data are kept hidden or made difficult to access, its value cannot be realized. And what's more, just like human relationships, data is no good if there's no trust. It's not enough just to share data. We also need to make sure that our data inspires trust and that we have the right measures in place to protect against its misuse. And this means that data needs to be shared with civil society, academics, and citizens to ensure accountability and transparency. It also means that data must be continually vetted for quality in terms of their accuracy, timeliness, relevance, and coverage. But even trust alone is not enough. We also need to make sure that data can be used in innovative ways to address complex and unexpected problems with an eye to equity, to enable the benefits of data to be shared equitably by all. In other words, what we need is an integrated national data systems, as the Zhejiang experience have inspired us to think. We need to use the 3 principles of a new social contract for data. That is value, trust, and equity, as proposed by the World Bank's World Development Report 2021, Data for Better Lives. So in practice, this means that we need to focus on improving the fundamental building blocks of development data as produced by national statistical systems. So in this regard, we really want to say that we're grateful for our long-standing collaborations with the National Bureau of Statistics of China. In particular, we want to recognize the data they shared with us, the grouped data that it has been providing the bank over the years. And this data had been crucial for our poverty estimates. At the same time, we're also hoping in the future to have access to microdata from the household surveys as well, as we do for almost all G20 countries. Accessing this microdata from household surveys will help us to improve our poverty estimates and to gain a more complex understanding of the contours of poverty in China and other countries, which is critical for better targeting interventions for future poverty reduction. And we also welcome further collaboration on the poverty line by governments, including China, such as using the societal poverty line or developing an official urban poverty line for future policy advice. But beyond those fundamentals, it is also imperative that we invest in the frontier, in new and innovative sources of data like geospatial, satellite imageries, mobile device data, and you name it, and work to integrate this data with traditional sources of data in close partnership with the private sector. It is rare that just one single layer of data can provide enough information to guide policy. Most complex and multidimensional problems require many different types of data to be integrated to gain actionable insight. This is why we must create systems that allow for integrating various data sources to help solve the problems of the future. To conclude, I want to really emphasize that China has been at the vanguard of reducing extreme poverty globally, and we hope that it will remain at the forefront of efforts to use data to further reduce poverty in all its forms. We're looking forward to working with you all to use data to make extreme poverty a relic of the past for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fu Haishan. Very informative report. In the report, Ms. Fu Haishan pointed out that in the past many years, there has been reversal trend in global poverty reduction, and due to some problems and challenges, and hunger has been exacerbated. And now I'm going to invite another lady to provide the comments. She is Professor Wang Xiaojun from the School of Statistics, Renmin University of China. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Madam Fu Haishan, for excellent presentation. So poverty alleviation and reduction as part of the top priority on the agenda of SDG for 2030 United Nations. From the perspective of global view, Fu Haishan mentioned about the number of impoverished population as well as the stable trend for the downward movement of the number of people living in poverty. And for China has contributed significantly for the global efforts to fight against the poverty. Well, now, given the downward trend for global economy and due to the impact from COVID-19 over the past few years, the number of people living in poverty has been increasing. And so by the year 2030, given how we have been progressing across the board, we may not be able to finish the target of poverty alleviation or reduction by the year 2030. So that's why, on that note, countries need to take some serious measures to take seriously the establishment of statistical system and the improvement of quality of the statistical data. And the open inclusiveness and integration should be the attitude for that we can extract more value from the data so that we can promote a better life for people and grow our economy. So widely covering and timely and high quality, highly available data is going to promote a social fairness to make sure that everyone is visible, everyone is being counted or represented in our statistical data. No one is left behind. So as a result of that, we can help to achieve the United Nations target to alleviate and reduce poverty. I'm on the same page with Professor Fu Haishan. So China has made remarkable progress in poverty alleviation. So in the year 2020, it's the historical landmark for China. That is the year we have already said goodbye and farewell to absolute poverty. And so we are on the journey of moving towards common prosperity. So ever since the founding for China, ever since the reform and opening up in the year 1978, China has been adopting a China-specific way for modernization of which we are promoting economic prosperity and improving people's life. On that note, we have established an all-nation covering social benefit and security protection mechanism. In the process of poverty alleviation, statistical monitoring and data analytics plays the pivotal role. So the governmental official statistics is not only providing data availability, but also using statistical analysis to provide some input for policy and formulation and decision making so that we can provide some input for China's strategy and action plan so that we can oversee its implementation and evaluate its effectiveness. In the process of fighting against poverty, the Chinese government has already come up with a specific implementation mechanism for poverty alleviation and reduction monitoring, as well as the evaluation mechanism. As a result of that, we also have the risk evaluation and monitoring system for poverty alleviation. So by putting in place the institutional mode of arrangement, we are seeing the collaboration between government and private sectors as well, so that we have made a lot of progress in achieving targeted poverty alleviation as well. So thank you very much, Fu Haishan, for sharing the experiences with us. This is a very, very important lesson for us to learn for developing countries and other different developing country members as well. So I would like to respond to a view that in the era when we are powered by AI and big data, we have to take seriously the extraction of the value of data so that we can have digitalized the governance, and by using the data value powered way, as a result of that, we can better implement the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals so that we can create a better life for people. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Wang, for your comments. Okay, the next keynote presentation is going to be done by Rachel Bevan, Director of the Statistics Division of UNESGAP, on statistics for well-being, data for development. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, colleagues and friends. Today I'm going to talk about statistics for well-being and data for development, but particularly for Asia and the Pacific. But let's just imagine for 1 minute, what will the world look like in 2065? Will we all be living in futuristic cities? Will we have abandoned roads in favor of space? And where will we all be? If I live as long as my grandma, who passed away at the age of 100, I'll probably still be around, but I doubt that I'll be here in a World Data Forum, and I probably will have retired. But why did I choose that year, 2065? Well, in our recent report, UNESCAP produced on SDG progress in Asia and the Pacific, we noted that based on the current rate of progress, we will not achieve the SDGs for Asia and Pacific until 2065. So it's another 42 years. And at the midpoint of the SDGs, we would have expected to have achieved 50% of the progress needed, but we've actually only achieved just under 15%. 2065 is also probably an optimistic estimate, as we see a range of cascading and converging risks, which will make achieving the SDGs even harder. And we just heard from Haishan as well on one of those. But we know that firstly, following decades of reducing levels of poverty, since COVID, we've seen the trend reversed. And in Asia and the Pacific, a further 85 million people have been pushed into extreme poverty. And secondly, we see the impact of climate change, which continues to escalate. And with a 1.5 degree Celsius increase in global temperatures, we would expect droughts to last an average of 2 months. But if global temperatures were to rise to 3 degrees, by 3 degrees, then droughts would last an average of 10 months. Thirdly, we also see the effects of conflicts, which are leading to rising inflation, especially food prices, and a cost of living crisis. We're at a tipping point where we can see that cascading risks are outpacing resilience. But for us to measure and to achieve the SDGs, we must have timely, granular data on these key priority areas. So looking in a little bit more detail at SDG progress in Asia and the Pacific, we can see here that we have made good progress on affordable and clean energy, Goal 7, and on industry, innovation and infrastructure, which is Goal 9. But for all the other goals, we're actually off track. And for Goal 13, on climate action, we're not just off track, but we're actually reversing. And looking in a little bit more detail on poverty, and as Haishan's already spoken about, we can see from this data, which is from the World Bank, that extreme poverty has indeed halved across Asia and the Pacific. But we also see that the picture is very mixed. And whilst there have been large reductions in extreme poverty in Tajikistan, Vietnam, Kyrgyzstan, and China, as we've heard about, we see more modest reductions in many of the other countries. But we also see this mixed picture means that we can very much learn from each other. We can look at what other countries are doing. And I'm pleased also to say that we have seen an improvement, and a really big improvement, in the availability of SDG data. And between 2017 and 2022, the number of SDG indicators with sufficient data has doubled in Asia and the Pacific. But as you can see from this chart, the momentum on increasing data availability is slowing down, and data still remains insufficient for 103 of the 232 indicators. But which countries actually have more data? Is it the rich countries, or is it some of the other countries? In this chart, which I know is a little bit complicated, but in the bars show the average number of SDG indicators with sufficient data, and the orange vertical markers show the same, but for the 5 richest countries in Asia and the Pacific region. And indeed, we can see that for 7 of the 17 goals, there is indeed more data available for the richest 5 countries in Asia Pacific compared to the regional average for Asia Pacific. And these are the orange bars you can see here. But we also see that for 9 of the goals, that is the ones shown in blue bars, the richest 5 countries have less data than the regional average. This suggests that limited resources for statistical development and technical capacity are unlikely to be the main causes for these data gaps, and there may well be other causes, including a lack of demand for the data, a lack of national ownership for specific indicators, or it could be that data exists at the country level, but it has not been provided for global monitoring. If we look in a little bit more detail, I haven't given you all the country names here, but if we look at the country level in Asia and Pacific, we can see that there are large differences in data availability. And the blue bars show the 10 countries in Asia and the Pacific which have the most data. And we can see it's actually Indonesia at the moment, according to our global, our kind of ESCAP database, which has the most data, but it's closely followed by Georgia and the Philippines. But we also see where data is the lowest, that's the orange bars, and 9 of those 10 countries where data is actually least available, those are in the Pacific, which you can clearly see here. So what can we do to address this situation? Well, being here this week is definitely one part of the solution. We know that we must put people and the planet at the heart of inclusive, sustainable development. But we need to be bolder and to be more ambitious. And this agenda is for everyone, for all countries, and for all people. No one should be left behind. But we can see here 3 things we need to do. Firstly, we need to invest in national statistical systems to build skills and capacity. And that's something that we're doing this week through these plenaries, through the side sessions, and also this year for the first time through learning labs. Secondly, we need to integrate data into decision-making to get the data used. So we need to work closely with policymakers to understand their data needs. We need to make sure that they have the high-quality, trusted, granular data that they need to make the best possible decisions to bring us back on track to meet the SDGs. And thirdly, finally, we need to build partnerships. We need to share lessons from the local level up to the global level, and that's another thing that we will be doing this week. And we know that if we work together, we can change this story of despair into a story of hope, where we do not have to wait until 2065 to achieve the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Rachel Bevan, for your presentation. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome Vice President of the Center for International Knowledge on Development, Madam Jiang Xiheng, to do some comments. Welcome. It's my honor to attend the United Nations World Data Forum. Thank you very much for Rachel Bevan for excellent presentation. By giving us thorough data, you have given us a picture of the great challenges confronting Asia-Pacific in achieving SDG. And so you have given your suggestions. I have 3 takeaway messages to share with you. First of all, based on your presentation, based on the current speed, Asia-Pacific can achieve 2030 SDG targets by 2065 earliest. And extreme poverty, climate change, and food price rocketing are adding up the risks. As a result of that, we are going to make sure that we are going to have more available, timely, and high granularity data in those key priority areas. We are aware of the special risks and challenges in achieving SDG agenda by 2030. And also, China rolled out Global Development Initiative, of which accelerated 2030 agenda. And the 8 areas includes poverty reduction, food security, and climate change, and green development. And also something echoing the theme of our conference, digital economy, and the connectivity in the digital era. Safe to say that representatives from all nations mentioned that level of digitalization is going to be very important in improving the availability, timeliness, and granularity of the data in different areas. I believe that as accelerated for the 2030 SDG, the Global Development Initiative is going to comprehensively play its role in data. Secondly, Rachel, I couldn't agree with you more when you talk about we have to incorporate data in our policy formulation. I believe that also for the policy formulation as well well as the challenges in application is the key for us. Just now you shared with us the experiences for poverty reduction. So I feel this is an interactive process. So one, we are trying to use the data-powered policy making and implementation. It's a mutually reinforcing process. And in the process, we can achieve the targeted poverty reduction. And thirdly, a very interesting phenomenon has been shared. The most of 5 richest countries in terms of the 9 different targets data availability is smaller than the regional average. I think that is indicative of statistical and the data demand is in line with the different contexts of different nations, and also is related to the priorities of different nations. We have to have a customized approach for different countries. So this is objectively based and makes a lot of sense. At the same time, we have to keep an eye and help those countries which have a gap in data and statistical capabilities, especially those small island countries in Pacific regions. Last but not least, the Chinese government takes seriously the achievement of a 2030 agenda. 2016, we have established a coordination mechanism to achieve 2030 agenda. So the NBS as well as the Development and Research Center of State Council and other 55 different ministries agencies are part of special task force. Ever since 2017, with the mechanism, the Development and Research Center of State Council have promulgated for the progress report for achieving 2030 progress for China, as well as the National Voluntary Statement report. We stand ready to work together with all the agencies from United Nations and other institutions so that we can strengthen our collaboration and exchanges. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Jiang Xiheng, for the wonderful comments. Next, let's move on to the invited speech 5. The presenter is Mr. Guo Huadong, Director of the International Research Center of the Big Data for SDGs of Chinese Academy of Sciences, talking about harnessing Big Earth data to achieve the SDGs. Acting Mission Guo, the floor is yours. Distinguished guests, delegates, I'm very honored to brief you on Big Earth data, harnessing Big Earth data to achieve the SDGs. SDGs face a lot of challenges, and data missing is one of the challenges. 1/3 of the indicators cannot get the support of data. For the UN, 8 years ago, formulated a technology facilitation mechanism to use science and technology to facilitate the development of a 2030 agenda. This is an important direction. How can we achieve that? We propose that we should use Big Earth data to enable SDG realization. We propose a pathway to harness Big Earth data enables the microscopic dynamic objective monitoring of the Earth, provides integrated approach to data analysis related to the SDG development. And the PRC government attaches great importance to science, technology, innovation, and application of big data to help the development of SDGs. At the 75th UNGA, President Xi Jinping proposed to set up an international research center of big data for SDGs. And after 1 year, the center was established, and President Xi Jinping and Secretary General Guterres also sent congratulatory letters to our center. Hopefully, with the big data regional centers, we could together to build the big data platform. And the PRC government attaches great importance to our center. Minister of Science and Technology, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Academy of Engineering and Sciences, as well as international organizations, attached great importance together to our center, and together with Premier Liu, opened our center. And also, we have a strong mission. We have 5 top priorities. The first one is to develop SDG data infrastructure and platform, use science and technology to do the SDG research, and develop and launch a series of SDG satellites, establish a think tank for STI to promote SDGs, capacity building for SDGs in developing countries. What is encouraging is that as of this moment, we have already set up our SDG Big Data platform, we have our own advanced information system. And this system has already gathered 16.4 PB, 40 years of satellite image data. We have different kinds of data, and every year we also to increase at 3 PB annually, and also more than 174 countries have accessed the system. In order to get dynamic data, several years ago we planned to launch satellites, and the satellites can actually get the Earth data continuously. What is encouragingly, 2 years ago, the first sustainable development satellite was successfully launched. You could see on this slide, all this data is very conducive to SDG targets to have a dynamic real-time monitoring. Data is very important, as mentioned by the previous speakers. How can we enable the UN members to share the data available? Several years ago, last year to be specific, among BRICS, 5 countries, we shared the data. And last September 22, Mr. Wang actually presented global SDG data products to the UN. Last month, we presented the global water resource data products to the 77th UNGA president. And also, we released a series of reports. We use Big Earth data to collect, gather, process the data to see their impact on SDG indicators. How can we monitor, evaluate those indicators? During the past several years, every year we release a report, and the report has been greatly endorsed and released by the senior leaders. After release of those reports, you can see Big Earth data. What is the use of Big Earth data? Twofold. First, you can see we use this data, we can actually look at the environmental parameters to see the progress of China. According to our data, among the 56 indicators assessed in China, 26 of the indicators have generally approached or reached the 2030 targets. Another aspect, by 2030, what is the land situation? So 2 years ago, according to our assessment, you can see 18.6% land recovery is contributed by China. Wang Yi also talked about it in international occasions. Actually, we contributed to 20% of the land recovered in the world. Data is a common product throughout the world. SDG is our common aspiration. We have to work with the members of the UN, and centering on the targets, we need to collaborate with each other to share data, to enable data to become information knowledge to be utilized. And last month, 2 months ago to be exact, you can see the UNGA president visited our center. He was greatly impressed about center. He said that he would invite me to New York to further discuss cooperation and collaboration. Last month, actually, we arrived at the New York to attend, together with Under Secretary General Li Junhua, to attend the Global Water Resource Conference. The UNGA president received us. We also presented our data to them, and this water data can be shared by the 193 member countries. And on June the 24th, President Xi Jinping chaired a high-level dialogue on global development, talk about 32 outcome list. Number 28 has 2 points. First, we need to conduct sustainable development, and also we need to study the data for sustainable development goals. And you can see the data and the information together with NBS of China. We're going to implement this plan to share data and information. And CBAS is an international center, welcome international experts and scholars. Let's join hands together to use big data to promote SDG development. Let's make our joint efforts to the realization of the SDGs. Thank you. Thank you, Academician Guo. Mr. Guo and his team have done very important work and with outstanding outcomes. I think that this is exactly how China is planning to implement SDGs. It is important measures. Next, we would like to give the floor to Mr. He Xuming, President-elect of ISI. The floor is yours. Dear friends, distinguished guests, good morning.
I'd like to thank Mr. Guo for his eye-opening presentation, taking us to learn a lot about the work at the International Research Center of Big Data for Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Guo has made a very strong case for the power of big Earth data, and he also demonstrated the importance for collaborations. As we know, monitoring and assessment of SGD indicators are certainly not unique to one country or one region. So the work introduced by Mr. Guo showcased what can be achieved and shared, and also what remains to be done by the data community and statistics community. Big Earth data is a global asset, also a global challenge. And many statistical issues remain to be tackled. I just give you a few examples. For example, the data standardization, which is very important because that would allow different systems to exchange data reliably. We also talk about distributed computing and inference, which allows us to effectively analyze data that might be stored in many different places, different countries, and for some reason, some of those data may not be able to be shared without any restrictions. We also need to think about fairness and trust in data-driven decision-making. And we all know that big data and powerful AI algorithms alone do not guarantee fair and reliable conclusions. And in fact, they might lead to misleading conclusions if we do not have the right statistical mind behind it. So these are just a small number of examples that I want to demonstrate, and those questions are also being studied by many statistical researchers in academia, in China, as well as many other countries. And we need to build a stronger and better bridge between the statistical research community and other data communities. At the present time, we are seeing increasing recognition of the importance of collaborations across countries, across a wide range of people in the data and statistics community. But I feel that we haven't done enough. Very often, people in the statistical research community would like to cluster around their own sub-communities to talk about what they are doing. And data owners and data production sectors, people there may not know exactly whom to turn to for better tools to really harness the full power of big data. So as a statistical researcher, I like to use this opportunity to call for broader and deeper collaborations between statistical research community and all others in the data community. Thank you very much. 谢谢大家。
Thank you, Professor He. Next, let's go to number 6, invited speech. The speaker is Mr. Liu Qiao, Dean of Guanghua School of Management, Peking University, talking about beyond GDP monitoring and evaluation on SDGs based on new development philosophy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my great honor to participate in this plenary session. I'm going to talk about a big project about GDP. As you know, GDP is a great invention of human society, but GDP measurement of human well-being has some problems. There have been a lot of discussions about it. For example, it fails to measure the negative externality and non-material welfare, and with the lack of infrastructure in the developing countries, the accuracy of data measured by GDP is now being questioned. So we have to figure out a better way to measure sustainable development and human society welfare. We have made some attempts in this measurement. I'm going to share with you some of our basic research. So our basic thinking is to convert future value into the current present value. It's like an adjustment factor. So we look at the GDP under the context of sustainable development, and we call it effective GDP. The key is how to construct this effective adjustment factor. We have adopted some analytical approach. For example, when this adjustment factor is constructed, it is based upon our understanding of the sustainable development of human society. We have identified 7 indicators in our system. We think that these 7 indicators are not fully reflected by the existing GDP measurement method. And these 7 indicators can successfully measure the progress of sustainable development. And it is based upon the principal component method. Now let's look at the adjustment factor ranking. The top 45 countries based upon our measurement approach. And we use effective GDP and real GDP and made a comparison between the two. And based upon our methodology, effective GDP is constructed, and we want to see whether effective GDP can measure the progress of achieving sustainable development goals. The adjustment factor is highly relevant to per capita GDP. It is also highly relevant to the UN SDG index. It can also be used to measure people's sense of happiness and the factors beyond GDP. And finally, based upon our analysis, we found that these 7 indicators can construct the effective GDP. And this effective GDP can effectively explain the cross-country happiness. It can effectively measure the welfare and the well-being as well as sense of happiness. The significance of this approach is that we have this unique indicator to measure human welfare and well-being. In the future, I think we have to further improve and optimize the indicator system to make it more accurate in measuring the achievement of GDP, of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And we will further correct and improve our model. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Liu. The issue of measurement beyond GDP was discussed a decade ago by many economists and politicians. In recent years, due to the new changes in global economic development, political situation, and ecology, more attention is now being paid to this measurement approach beyond GDP. That's why the Guanghua Graduate School of Management at Pike University has worked with the MBS China in this joint research. Here, on behalf of MBS China, I would like to thank the Graduate School of Management. Now I'm going to invite the commentator, Mr. Lei Chan, Deputy Director General, National Institute of Statistics of Cambodia, to provide comments. Welcome.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to take the opportunity to thank to the MBS China for providing support and inviting me to a great opportunity, such a big event like this. And ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you very much to Mr. Li Guo for providing the presentation of the report on the Sustainable Development Goal about the evaluation and monitoring based on the SDG framework to capture on the beyond the SDG monitoring. And I would like to highlight some key important of the report that he reflects on, especially about the limitation that exists at the existing of the among the other countries, in particular those developing countries, about the missing value, the measure the growth of the development and also the neglecting of the and also in the inadequate quality of interconnection, for instance. And in this regard, he also highlights some define of the concept on the ideal model, development model, using in addition what the current SDG, but also improvement on the other major aspects related to economy, environment, people, livelihood, and interconnection. And also come up with the define of the principle of the adjustment analysis using of selecting a number of indicators at the framework of the SDG and also alignment at the existing or national development indicator, and to come up with the focus on the main indicator where that capture on the beyond of SDG indicator and reflecting on effective SDG to monitor in the future at the level and regional level as well as at the country level. And finally, he highlight in particularly about the future action regarding to the development and promotion of different indicator system reflecting different development and as well as the country and the region, also related to the functional based on the indicator system. In this aspect, I would like to share the experience of Cambodia relating to the current effort relating to this emerging of this research report. The Cambodia document to be an upper income economy by 2030 and also to higher income economy by 2030. And within that, the documentation through the Pentagon strategy, which is the first series of series to reach our ambitious goal and a key roadmap for the government to define its implement and the strategic direction as well as policy measures. Within that, a set of monitoring and evaluation indicators currently being discussed and developed through the existing rectangular strategy 2018 to 2023, which cover number of dimensions related to the peace and prosperity, innovation, technology, as well as the people happiness, and among the other of the 16 dimensions, we grouping into the 5 thematic areas: governance, economy, society, environment, and interconnection. This will be supported by the National Statistical Office through the National Statistical System to regular in the future disseminate through a number of statistical dashboard and platform to be informed decision making as well as planner to monitor as well as to support political intervention up to the subnational level. Finally, I would like to highlight all those we are now moving to a very good to focus on the people happiness and society prosperity, but the challenging ahead relating to the different level of the country, different perspective and vision that also even we are moving to the same common global based on the SDG goal, but country might be different perspective and different vision and focus on especially based on the national context. And also in the area of the principle of the comparability and contextual development, I think that the need of support at the country level, in particularly on the support on develop of methodology and the data availability and fully apply the international standardization to capture more on and as well as to reflect on the current practice of at the country level. And in addition, we think that the framework should be distinguished based on the political and instrumental role of the indicator to more effective support political platform agenda of the country as well as the same direction toward the common goal SDG and of course to achieving the strong commitment of country vision that would be joint effort and also joint development of in the area of the investment statistical development in the country level, in particularly those developing countries would be a very good point and should be take more into consideration. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lei Chen. We are behind the original schedule by about 12 minutes. So it is a pity that we cannot have the time to open the floor to the audience, but we have a lot of preliminaries and parallel sessions for you to continue our discussion. In the morning, Commissioner Kang Yi delivered a keynote speech, and we got 6 keynote presentations and had 7 commentators providing excellent comments. As the chairperson for this preliminary session, I would like to thank all of the speakers and commentators for your great contribution. And I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of the guests present here. Thank you, the colleagues from the statistical community and the data community from home and abroad. A big thank you and a big welcome to you all. I hope that you will attend our other sessions and to provide your continuous support for us. So that's the end of this host country plenary session. Thank you.